Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and roll your notifications to all so you don't miss any of the demonic content. In our last video, we discussed the Machiavellian tactics encouraged by C. Peter Wagner in his work Dominion, and his endorsement of R.J. Rushdoony, the author of the Institutes of Biblical Law, who recommended using capital punishment to curb alternative sexualities, religious belief, and even disobedient children. In this third and final portion of the analysis, I'll be looking at the progress that has been made by Dominionists in the vein of Wagner's work, including those who ascribe to the Seven Mountain Mandate. Since this is a large and deep pool of victories to draw from, I'm going to primarily focus my attention on the last three presidential election cycles. I'm likewise intending to be fairly brief here, but if any of you are interested in hearing more, I'm happy to offer additional content in order to elaborate. A major Dominionist victory was won by the combined efforts of C. Peter Wagner and Lance Wallnau in the 2016 election cycle. By 2016, Wagner's health was beginning to fail him, but he took to Facebook in February with a rare and influential message for his followers. The message began, quote, "I like Donald Trump," end quote. Wagner's post, which can still be read on Charisma, reads as something of a playbook for evangelicals trying to convince other evangelicals that Trump was the correct candidate for them. Part of this discussion, the idea that Cyrus was an example of a non-Christian used to facilitate God's will, was picked up by Lance Wallnau, the main proponent of the Seven Mountain Mandate. In his work, God's Chaos Candidate, Wallnau makes the argument that Donald Trump is a modern-day Cyrus, connecting Isaiah 45, the passage in which the God of the Hebrew Bible selects Cyrus as his anointed champion to free the Israelites from bondage in Babylon, to the idea that Trump was set, if elected, to become the 45th president of the United States. Wallnau promised his readers that Trump's election would counter the, quote, doctrines of demons and, quote, false Christs that have filled schools, universities, and progressive political movements. The voting patterns appear to speak for themselves in this regard. Both authors appeal to white evangelical voters who cast their ballots largely in favor of Trump. According to Pew Research, 34% of Trump's votes came from such voters, and many of these votes were located in the swing states that allowed him to claim electoral victory, even as he dragged behind in the popular vote. Arguably the biggest get for Dominionists in 2020 was Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA. While Kirk may have moved towards Dominionist views before this time, it was in February of 2020 that Kirk made a speech to the Conservative Political Action Conference in which he stated that Donald Trump was a president who, quote, understands the seven mountains of cultural influence, end quote. As Matthew Boedy writes in The Seven Mountains Mandate, exposing the dangerous plan to Christianize America and destroy democracy, in 2021, through the newly formed Turning Point Faith, Kirk would target congregations in the U.S. with Dominionist messaging. Another project of TPUSA, Turning Point Academy, also began to pass out free curriculum in school systems, thanks to significant donations made to the organization. Boedy states in summary, quote, Kirk has done all this to make Turning Point the indispensable organization for the Seven Mountains movement. By each of its arms at the same time, Turning Point is fulfilling the mandate. As Kirk said in 2021, winning very simply for us is restoring the American way of life. Kirk's plan for restoration is well underway. The picture of victory outlined through each chapter in this book lays bare the danger our nation faces. Another paradoxically impactful event was the loss of Donald Trump in the 2020 election cycle. While this was an obvious disappointment to the movement, many Dominionists turned towards demons in order to explain how a candidate many had understood to be chosen by God could have lost the election. Many of these narratives benefited from the fact that they could easily be secularized into more mundane excuses for election fraud. That is, the sort of generalized narrative of demons caused Donald Trump to fail could easily be converted into the radical left or Democrats stole the election. This led to many news outlets covering election denial as if it was primarily or even solely a secular issue rather than what it was for many people, a religious and demonological one. As Matthew D. Taylor writes in The Violent Take It by Force, the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th was not simply a group of random individuals who had gathered to protest the election results. It was predominantly composed of charismatic evangelicals. and many members of the New Apostolic Reformation were attendees. These individuals saw January 6th as the ultimate Jericho March, a method of spiritual warfare within the movement, which had been previously practiced at other locations as well. As Taylor puts it, quote, "It is difficult to imagine that a more direct line could be drawn between the NAR and the theology of Peter Wagner and the Capitol Riot. Here, two of Wagner's spiritual daughters, Cindy Jacobs and Rebecca Greenwood, were praying and doing strategic-level spiritual warfare against territorial spirits, just steps away from the intensifying violence of the insurrection." In the end, this election denial serves two rhetorical purposes. First, it supports a narrative in which the only way the opposing party could win is by cheating. And second, it legitimates violence in the pursuit of overturning these stolen election results. I would venture to guess we haven't seen the last of either of these ideas. The two most obvious elements of the 2024 election, keeping in mind that I'm recording this at the end of 2025, are the use of Project 2025 in the new administration and the increasing influence of Ziklag. Regarding the first, many authors have pointed out, correctly I would say, that the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 is an overtly dominionist plan for governmental takeover. From establishing a government that is governed by biblical principles, to Kevin Roberts claiming in July that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. The project is a clear reflection of Wagner's desires to use any means necessary to create a nation governed by Christians for Christians. Of course, Wagner also believed that money was essential to creating such change. Enter Ziklag, the rather shadowy 503c organization that is advised by Lance Wallnau and boasts membership like the families behind Hobby Lobby, Jockey Apparel, and Uline. Only those with a net worth of $25 million or more need apply. Based upon documents acquired by ProPublica and documented, the organization is up to more than what a 503c organization should legally be allowed to do, including funding messaging behind the anti-LGBTQ+ rhetoric that pervaded the 2024 election cycle. In these documents, the organization self-describes as, quote, private, confidential, invitation-only community of high-net-worth Christian families, end quote, whose goal is to, quote, take dominion over the seven mountains, end quote. To sum up, Wagner's work, Dominion, influenced a variety of different groups. The plan he advocates is one which spawned Christian nationalist and dominionist organizations, many of which are taking his encouragement to do whatever it takes to win seriously. At the core of many of these influential movements is an idea about the demonic that has pervaded the United States for the past 3 or 4 decades. An idea of politically active demons who control the nation from behind shadowy conspiracies. This is an ongoing, deeply influential, and deeply disturbing movement that has already had and will continue to exert a profound impact on the United States.